You talk about the video, like, well, then go drink the chemical. But what people don't realize is it's like, would you go in your kitchen right now and get some toxic chemical that's under your kitchen sink and drink it? That is what is going into our food.
Empowering you organically, delivering content you trust with results you love.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Empowering You Organically. I am your host, Jonathan Hunsaker, joined by my co-host, Terry Entrevenin.
Hey, everyone.
And this is part 2 with our special guest, Jeffrey Smith.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Listen, so really quickly, before we get into things, I want to talk about your documentary that's playing right now for free, secretingredientsmovie.com. Anybody that wants to watch it and can watch it for free by going there right now. Mm-hmm. Tell me, as you were making this documentary, what was the biggest aha moment, or what's a story that you can share that just, that blew your mind?
Well, there's stories that came before the documentary, which was causing me to make the documentary. Like I was speaking on stage in MIT with a scientist about the dangers of RoundUp and asked the audience, as I typically do, how many people noticed the difference when they switched to non-GMO or organic. And a woman stood up and said, my 6.5-year-old was violent and out of control. They wanted to kick him out of school. I saw your film, the earlier film, Genetic Roulette, and changed his diet, and all the problems went away. And I said, how long did it take? She said, 1 week. And then she said, within a month, I had a new son.
Wow.
I talked to a grandmother. She was volunteering at a booth that I was speaking at a conference and then offering books and movies afterwards in my booth. And she was volunteering there. And she said, I saw your film, this is an earlier film, and I thought of my grandson, who they call, the school calls home almost every day about his bad behavior, and he has trouble breathing. And I figured he needs to change his diet. So I convinced my son to watch the film, and he saw it, changed my grandson's diet, and now he has no more trouble breathing. And they never call home anymore except the day after he eats at the other grandparent's house. So it's evidently a very quick response. So when I was going around filming with Amy Hart for Secret Ingredients, there's one family that did not make it into the movie. But here's something that I want to share from that family. They had a health bill of about $18,000 a year for the 6 of them. And she went to a organic conference to sell stuff, sell her business, her procedures, and decided, well, I probably should switch to organic now that I've heard about it. It makes sense. So she had no previous understanding. They didn't have lots of organic food. They just switched from straight chemical-based food to organic. The next year, their health bill went to $9,000, split in half. The year after that, it went below $3,000. So this is something that I hear from people, that switching to organic actually saves money. And I've heard that many, many times. Now, in the film, you're going to hear about people with miscarriages, people, as we talked about before, 2 autistic boys who start out autistic. We'll just leave it there if you're just catching the part 2 for the first time. I don't want to spoil everything.
Sure.
But basically, it's amazing. You'll meet Kathleen DiChiara. When I interviewed her originally, it was like, oh my God. Her family had 21 chronic conditions between the 5 members of the family. And she was an investigator, and she lost her job because she became disabled. She became unable to walk. She was in constant pain. And she put it together that it could be the food. So she started to experiment on the family, systematically taking things out, getting somewhat better. They did a lot of changes in the food, but it wasn't until they switched to organic that the problems quickly went away. And so she was able to say, yeah, she took out the gluten, she took out the processed food, she took out the food dyes and all these things, and they still were managing the signs of chronic conditions. And it wasn't until they switched out of non-GMO and organic and non-glyphosate that they went away. So in this case, it was one set of poisons that was manifesting differently in different people in the same family, which leads us to what is it about GMOs and Roundup that can cause different diseases? What actually do they do to us?
And that was my next big question is what does Roundup do to your body? We talked about in part one, not GMO crops that are being sprayed with Roundup, but then you were also sharing why it's so important to go organic, not just non-GMO, because there's so many crops that are being sprayed with Roundup, right before they're harvested. So can you, if I can ask you to please list a lot of those popular foods again that get sprayed right before they're harvested. And then two, what are the effects of Roundup on the body?
Beautiful. So first of all, the GMOs that are sprayed with Roundup, soy, corn, cotton for cottonseed oil, canola, sugar beets, and alfalfa. And for the non-GMO crops, it's the only major herbicide where there's not regular testing by the government, because the government has been marching lockstep with Monsanto doing their bidding, and somehow they got convinced that they shouldn't need to even test for Roundup because it's so healthy and so safe, which it turns out it's a disaster. So for independent studies, independent tests, we see it on the grains. It's big on oats and wheat, for example, but it's also on rice and other grains. It's on the beans, from lentils to kidney beans. It's sprayed on sunflowers, it's kiwi, citrus orchards, potatoes, sweet potatoes, vineyards. It's in a lot of parts of our food supply, but not in organic. It's not allowed to be sprayed in organic. Now, what happens if you're taking Roundup? Well, Roundup, its primary poison is called glyphosate, and glyphosate was patented as a chelator. Now, we think of chelation as binding with heavy metals and taking them out of the body as a good thing. But in this case, it chelates with all sorts of minerals, making them unavailable. And these are the minerals we want to have available. So the reason it was patented as a descaler to clean the mineral deposits inside industrial boilers and pipes. So it was a cleaning chemical. You'd pour it in and it would pull the minerals out, it would bind with the minerals, and then they'd dispose of it on the ground and notice, oh, it's killing all the plants. And so it was then bought by Monsanto, who patented it as an herbicide. But they also patented it as an antibiotic. And it kills the beneficial bacteria in the soil and also in our guts, but not the nasty pathogens. So let's stop and just look at those two qualities for a moment, and there's more. But those two qualities, and see what it's doing to our bodies. And this is, in the film Secret Ingredients, we have animation to make this really clear. So if science makes your eyes roll back on your head, it's fine. It's very easy. It's cartoonish. You can get it that way. But I'm going to talk in terms of words now. So minerals are really important for certain things to happen in the body. There's all these what are called metabolic pathways. This causes this, causes this, causes this. But the domino at the front is the presence of a mineral. And unless you have a mineral, everyone's on strike. Everyone's sitting there waiting around for that mineral to show up. So you've disabled certain metabolic pathways. They're offline. They're striking. And so mineral deficiency is linked to an enormous number of diseases. Now, when you spray Roundup on crops, you reduce the mineral availability in those crops. When you feed the Roundup-ready crops to animals, which is the primary food for the livestock in the U.S., those are mineral deficient crops. And there's Roundup residues or glyphosate residues, which further bind with the minerals inside the bodies of the animals. So now we have mineral deficient animals. So now the humans eat the mineral deficient crops and the mineral deficient animals, and they get the residues of Roundup, which further binds with the minerals, making them unavailable or less available. So we have a situation where a lot of the diseases that are linked to mineral deficiency may be triggered or exacerbated by the Roundup and the glyphosate. Now, one of those pathways that glyphosate can shut down, it's called the shikimate pathway. And what's interesting about it is Monsanto bragged that the shikimate pathway is only found in plants. So Roundup And they pretended that's all Roundup did, is just block the shikimate pathway. Since we don't have the shikimate pathway in humans, it's safe to drink, which you can die.
I did see the video where I'm sure people have seen it on YouTube, where the investigative reporter was interviewing somebody from Roundup, from Monsanto,
who was representing Monsanto.
Exactly, and so, well, if it's healthy, then drink it. And the guy just,
he said, you can drink it. And the guy says, well, we have some.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to drink it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the shikimate pathway is used by gut bacteria to produce the precursors to, and now we've all heard of this, serotonin, melatonin, dopamine. These are the feel-good chemicals and also what helps us sleep. If we don't have enough of these neurotransmitters, then we may end up with mood problems like depression and anxiety, or pain, or not knowing that we've eaten enough and will continue to eat, or maybe problems with insomnia. So it's interesting when you look back at the survey of the people saying they got better from different things when they switched to organic food or non-GMO food, you see mood issues.
And you said depression and
anxiety, exactly.
Yeah.
You see insomnia and other sleep disorders.
Yeah.
And you see pain. So here's one pathway that could be causing that. Now, that's just the mineral chelation. The antibiotics, I mean, how many times in the last 2 years have we heard about the microbiome? It's the thing now. It's like if you don't know about the microbiome, you haven't been paying attention. It's the gut bacteria and other organisms inside of us that actually are incredibly important for health. What they do is they digest our food and produce certain vitamins that wouldn't otherwise be produced. They'll be part of our immune system. They're part of our detoxification system. Yeah. And if we take an antibiotic, it's like carpet bombing. It's terrible for the antibiotic. Well, for the microbiome. It turns out that glyphosate is an antibiotic, and it's specifically dangerous for the good stuff. Not the salmonella, the botulism, the negative E. coli, but the lactobacillus, the bifidobacteria, the stuff that we want, the stuff that we buy in probiotics and in yogurt. So I've been interviewing people who are experts at the microbiome, and they say that the imbalance in the microbiome is a precursor to most diseases. And we have a big problem with Roundup.
Well, the immune system resides in the gut, which we talk a lot about. Leaky gut's a huge issue. Microbiome is widely talked about now where it wasn't before. I keep going back to what you said where, they purchase this chemical. And it's like, you talk about the video, like, well, then go drink the chemical. But what people don't realize is it's like, would you go in your kitchen right now and get some toxic chemical that's under your kitchen sink and drink it? That is what is going into our food. Would you take your kids in the kitchen right now and be like, here's some chemicals, drink them? That is what is going.
Would you like Roundup with that?
Yeah, it's just a spray.
This keeps going, like playing. It's like a video in my head as you're talking, and especially when you talked about they purchased the chemical that they were cleaning pipes and pulling things out of. And it's like, would you take your family in right now and say, here's some cleaner, drink it? Yeah. That's what's going into our food, and people just aren't awake enough to this yet. Yes, it's a movement. Yes, it's changing. Yes, people are getting it, but they're not getting it enough. And that's clear from, where you talked about the rates of how much they're using this in our food going up and disease going up. Right. And there's so many things that are there to show that there's a lot that's going into that being tied together.
And you mentioned leaky gut. I mean, if your audience knows about leaky gut, listen to these two things. When you take human cells in a petri dish that are bound tight together with tight junctions, and you add Roundup in that petri dish, they separate. So it loses the tight junctions. If that happens inside our gut,
we lose everything.
That's leaky gut. Yeah. And also Bt toxin pokes holes in human cells. That's found in genetically engineered corn. If it pokes holes in human cells, then it may end up causing leaky gut inside the cells. So that's another reason why Roundup is to be avoided. Here's another one, mitochondria. Otto Warburg got a Nobel Prize. He had a mitochondria theory of cancer. There's a mitochondria theory of aging. Mitochondria produces the energy in the body. And so we talk about in the film, you're going to see people recovering from brain fog and fatigue. And it could be that the mitochondria is no longer being attacked by the glyphosate or the Roundup. And the mitochondria is about 10% of our body weight. It's very important. It's really critical for health. And there's many diseases. I gave a talk once at a medical conference. It was 2 days about the mitochondria. And it's like it's the big deal also, in addition to the microbiome. Similarly, Roundup is linked to birth defects, both in animals and in lab animals, but also where it's sprayed, like in South America and Argentina. The birth defect rate skyrocketed when they started spraying Roundup by plane. So did cancer. That's another piece. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer determined that glyphosate is a class 2 carcinogen. It means it's a probable human carcinogen. It's a definite animal carcinogen. They just don't have enough human studies, and it's a little bit immoral to get a group of people and feed them Roundup, like you just said.
Yeah.
So we also see that it damages the digestive system, the digestive tract. It suppresses digestive enzymes. And I'm just getting started.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that? You talked about earlier in the podcast, people having all of these medical expenses and how much they cut down. And when I shared my health journey about going to organic, and it was more expensive at first, even just a few years ago when I went organic, it was so much more expensive. And now that people are starting to buy more and more organic and consumers are asking and demanding for it, the price is going down. It's still expensive to switch to an organic diet. However, think about the impact of eating food that's not organic on your health, like you're talking about, how expensive it is to maintain your body and the issues that are happening to your body. I don't even know if maintain's the right word, because then you go to the doctor and it feels like they're filling you full of more crap. It's just a problem that just goes in a cycle over and over and over again. And it's like, why would you not, knowing this information, why would you not eat organic? Pay the price to eat organic, because over the long term, you're going to pay more just to sustain health at some normal level, but it's not even a normal level at that point. And, for me, as I listen to your stories and I think about when I switched to organic, in the last 4 years, I can count on 2 hands how many times my children and I have been to the doctor.
And you will,
and not always for being sick.
And in the film, now we're doing plot spoiling. I don't want to give too much away, but yes, the families that went organic, it's like they go for their annual checkups, people in the doctor's office said it's unheard of. That you have 3 boys and they're in elementary school, they're not coming in.
Yep.
And it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting when you think about it like that. Here's
an interesting thing too. We address, where people watch the free showing event for the film, we have a program to help people switch to organic so that their desire can be easily fulfilled. And we teach people how to save money. So it isn't necessarily a lot more expensive. In fact, there's a bunch of discounts there so that the program itself can save you money. But yeah, there's actually, when you put a lot of brain power, we're crowdsourcing a lot of ideas, how to save time, how to save money, how to ferment, sprout, grow, buy in bulk, all these. Then deeper dives into so many subjects, because this is like, it may have taken you a number of years to learn all these things. Well, I've been gathering experts and gathering tips and tricks, and now we're just putting it into this 90-day, 13-week program, so that at the end of the day, someone's living the lifestyle and experiencing it, and hopefully they've taken advantage of that food symptom diary, which we're including, so they can see the changes in their lives in those 90 days.
So cool.
And they'll learn more about the 90-day program by watching the movie, right? So going to secretingredientsmovie.com and registering there, watching the documentary.
And then immediately after that, I describe, because here's the thing. Everyone, I used to do film festivals with the film, and I'd go and talk to the audience and say, okay, before we start, rate yourself percentage-wise, what percentage of your diet is organic, including going out to eat, everything. And so I would say how many are 0 to 20, 20 to 40, et cetera. And then I'd say how many people, after the film, where do you want to be? Well, I didn't answer any questions. I just wanted to see the impact of the film. I said, how many people, tell me what percentage you plan to be, not want, but plan to be at this point in terms of percentage of organic. How many people plan to be 0 to 20? Now, it might have been 40% were eating in the 0 to 20 beforehand. When I asked that question after the film, it's 0. No one raises their hand at that point. 20 to 40, no one. 40 to 60, maybe one or two. It's 60 to 100 is in that area where the audience has shifted. And I'll ask people, how many people have already thought of someone they want to share the film with? And every single person raises their hand every time. I've never seen someone not raise their hand because they all have friends that have chronic diseases that they think may be related now to GMOs and Roundup, and they want them to try organic. So I've been talking about GMOs for 23 years and Roundup for most of that time. And it's been easy for me sharing the information about the dangers to inspire someone to want to change their life. However, I also hear from people, I should have changed my life 5 years ago when I heard you. And now I've gotten sick and now I'm changing my life when I see the difference. Or some people, like you say, I changed my life then and I don't have the same sickness in my family. But others that have seen it that they know didn't change, or others have heard my lectures, whatever. So my job, now that we've produced the film, Amy Hart and I did a good job of putting the people in front of you so you can see the transformations that occur. They did the job. They made the transitions. We just put them on camera. Now it's my job to make it easy for people to fulfill their desires. Because, I'm an activist. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't do this as a practitioner. I do this for the world. I do this, we pioneered the behavior change messaging about GMOs. We were the first nonprofit to focus on the health dangers. We created the messaging about it. We've taught 1,500 people how to speak about it. We had 10,000 activists and groups around North America. I've given 1,000 lectures and 1,000 interviews. And the purpose is to change the world. We saw that, we talked about this in part one, the tipping point of consumer rejection happened in Europe because of a massive coverage about the health dangers of GMOs back in 1999. But not in the US. So we've been educating people as best we can. And guess what? The tipping point is underway now. So this whole thing is, I'm thinking about an organic tidal wave around the world.
Yeah. And it's a great segue into something I wanted to touch on in the podcast. You've had this amazing evolution of your journey and where you started to where you are now. And I think it is starting to come to the forefront of people's minds more in the United States, more so than it ever has before. I want to talk about the Monsanto cases that have been going on. And I want to talk about them because the evolution of your journey has brought us here. And I'm sure for you, and I'll let you share your feelings on some of these cases that have come about and people starting to win. Feels like a personal victory for you, no doubt. Ooh. And I can't even imagine. It gives me chills saying it because it's your life's work to not only bring attention to it, but to help people change their lives. And you've brought the attention. And because of the attention you've brought to it, talk about these cases and where we are.
I'm gonna freeze you for just a second. Will you talk for just 2 minutes about the movement and how that's growing, and then tell us about the cases? Because I just want everybody to kind of understand. That it started in 1999-ish, right? What's kind of happened over time? Have you seen it grow? Have you seen the awareness, and how much has it grown? And then now, like, where are we leading to now with the Monsanto?
Yeah, it's
cases?
good. Yeah, the case it does. I'll put the context for the cases.
Please.
That's great. So I started in 1996. That's when GMOs started to be planted. I lived in Iowa, and that's where there are a lot of planting in Iowa. And I learned from a genetic engineer. He's blowing the whistle saying it's not ready for prime time. It's quite dangerous. It should never be in the food supply. It should never be in the environment. And so the environmental piece, which could be worse than the health issue, it's that it can remain in the gene pool. The only thing that lasts longer than a contaminated gene pool is extinction. Because if the gene pool isn't contaminated, it's passed on from generation to generation, and we have no technology to uncontaminate the corn. We can reduce the amount of contamination by adding more non-GMO into the world, but we can't eliminate it. And we're facing a situation where if we don't stop it, then the biotech industry could replace nature. And I'll talk about the new technologies and why that's a particular danger in a few minutes. So we started talking about the health dangers early on, 1996. I published Seeds of Deception in 2003. It became a world bestseller. I traveled all over the world with that. People started changing the way they're talking about GMOs. And starting around 2010, I found that people who had been reading my books and hearing and reading my articles, I was writing long articles so that I was giving the details so that it was it was a complete antidote to the myths that the biotech industry was giving. I wasn't being lightweight. I was going into depth. All of a sudden, I had found people who were taking the leadership role. They were reading the materials, and then they had groups. Mom with autistic child had other moms that she was leading. A person at a natural food store had a group that he was leading. And so we realized we needed to catch up. So we created the Tipping Point network of groups, got them started. In 2012, I released the movie Genetic Roulette, and also there was the Ballot Initiative in California for labeling. And between the two of them, the amount of people that were concerned about the health dangers in GMOs went from 51% in 2012 to 61% in 2013. We were focusing a lot on the natural products industry. The non-GMO project came up, started to verify products. Whole Foods in 2013 said at the expo, we're going to require products to be either organic certified or non-GMO project verified by 2018, or they will be considered GMOs. So, and they also mentioned that when a product becomes non-GMO verified, there's an increase in sales of 15 to 30%. That was the tipping point for the natural products industry. There was a flood of people trying to get their products non-GMO project verified so that they would get the boost in sales. And so there was an 18-month waiting list for getting their verification. In the beginning of 2014, first was Cheerios, and then Grape Nuts, and then other products started to name who were not in the natural products industry. They started to say, we're non-GMO. Nestle's coffee creamer, non-GMO. So it started in 2014 in the mainstream, and now 46% of Americans say they're seeking non-GMO food. Obviously, less people do what they say than say it, but that's more than we need because the tipping point is underway. All the major food companies are putting more and more effort into replacing the GM ingredients. And so we're winning at this point. We haven't won. It's not yet taken hold so much in the animal feed, and we need to get people organic, not just non-GMO, and get rid of the Roundup altogether by making it extremely unpopular. And this film, as you'll see when you watch, makes Roundup extremely unpopular. Not just to spray, but to eat it. Okay. So then it comes along 2015, the International Agency for Research on Cancer determines that glyphosate is a class 2A carcinogen, and particularly for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the Doctors TV show invites Monsanto to defend its chemical. So they've groomed and prepared for this. Leaked documents show that they had a full court press trying to discredit the World Health Organization's committee and their determination. And so they sent toxicologist Donna Farmer to the Doctors TV show. We got a call from the Doctors TV show. Can you be on with Donna Farmer by Skype? She's going to be in the audience, and we'd like to get a counterpoint. Well, if Donna Farmer knew that I was going to be on, she probably wouldn't have accepted because Monsanto has a policy not to be in open debate with me. But it was too late because it was coming up the next day. So I ended up debating her. And, you know, I pointed out so many things about Roundup. It was kind of shocking to them. And for the next few days, they were fact-checking every single thing with me. But I remember she said as she finished, I'm very confident in this chemical. And I am confident as a mother, and I can back it up as a scientist. Now, the lawyers got involved because of the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they started to defend and take on cases of people that had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that were using Roundup, or the survivors where the husband died, for example. And so they were able to get the documents from Monsanto's inner sanctum and the emails and the text messages. And they were made public, a lot of them. And then I looked up Donna Farmer's name. In private, in the emails, Donna Farmer says to another person working for Monsanto, we can't say that Roundup doesn't cause cancer. There's not enough research. Or Donna and I believe that the Roundup, the full mixture, may have caused the tumors in the rats, or the deaths in the rats may be because of Roundup. We have a document that she ghost wrote She went in there and changed everything, took out her name, took out Monsanto's name, took out the link between Roundup and miscarriages, and ghost wrote a study. So in private, she was clearly aware of the dangers. So I contacted the doctors, the producer, and I said, guess what? We have evidence that she lied on television. So the producer said, well, it looks like we might do the show. I said, how much time do you think they'll give us? She said, maybe 4 minutes. I introduced her to Brent Wisner, who is the 30-something really powerful attorney who was defending the people with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for one of the class actions. And they went and interviewed him, and they interviewed a plaintiff and invited him and a plaintiff and me on TV and did an entire 1-hour show on the Monsanto papers.
Amazing.
I don't think they'd ever done that before, an entire show. And I was very impressed with this guy, Brent Wisner. He was a firebrand. He didn't hold back. He was telling it like it is. And I was there during I was there during the trial. I was there during his closing arguments. Man, that guy was good. And he won. And the jury awarded $289 million to Lee Johnson, a Benicia school district groundskeeper who had terminal non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, according to his prognosis. And the judge lowered it to $78 million, but that was a lot. That was a shot heard around the world because Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, bought Monsanto for $63 billion, and they set aside $260 million for all of the lawsuits. And the first jury awarded $289 million, surpassing what they put aside. The stock price of Bayer between that and the subsequent trials went down 40%, $40 billion. They were a $100 billion company, $40 billion.
Good.
Yeah, no kidding. So it's like, guess what, guys? I told you. I actually published something in a financial website about why it was a bad idea for the shareholders to approve the sale. There was all sorts of liability, and this was just one of them. And so right now, there's all sorts of companies that are taking Roundup off the shelves, countries that are taking it off the shelves. School systems that are stopped using it. We have at rounduprisks.com, we have a program to help people stop the spray. So, and I think the film Secret Ingredients will nail the coffin on it because so many people will see. It is more clearly represented as the villain in that film than I think anything else because we pulled together everything at state-of-the-art science. So the fact that this lawsuit happened was the shot heard around the world. Everyone was reporting.
Were you there when the case was finalized?
So what happened was, I was at the trial. It was in San Francisco for the closing arguments, and then the jury was out, and I did not go into the jury room. Into the courtroom when they were allowed to give the answer, but I did watch it on video later. But as soon as it was available, I put it out there on live Facebook. I went to the press conference that afternoon, live Facebooked it, had more than 250,000 views. And I interviewed Brent Wisner for 3 hours afterwards. We have a series on our website of Brent Wisner and I going into the details, getting stuff out that no one has ever seen.
Yeah.
Because you don't get it all out in the trial, and it's never covered in the press. And there were some dramatic moments.
Yeah. So how did that feel for you? I'm just curious. That's a big moment.
Oh my God. It's like, you're chipping away, and a big chunk falls, and it's like, oh my God. And I didn't have to do it. I wasn't the attorney. I did very little in helping the attorneys. I've often helped attorneys before, but these guys were on it.
It's awesome. Amazing.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this podcast. I think what you've shared and what you've done for the world is phenomenal.
I have to add one thing because I did mention I would say it.
Do it.
I mentioned the 6 GMOs out of 11 crops: soy, corn, cotton, canola, sugar beets, alfalfa. But there's also zucchini, not all of it. Bayer's organic, same with yellow squash. Papaya, but only from China or Hawaii. And there are potatoes and apples that are engineered not to turn brown when you slice them. And I won't go into the details, but those may be worse than anything we've seen. because eating those may reprogram our DNA. Not changing the DNA in terms of its location along the DNA inside our cells, but what genes express. It could be reprogrammed by eating the genetically engineered Arctic apple or innate potato. In fact, the person who made the potato, the scientist who first worked at Monsanto, then later at J.R. Simplot, he wrote a book after that. Pandora's Potato is the worst GMO. He realized after he retired that it was a travesty and could be causing massive damage to health.
Now, what did they splice together, I should say, to create that potato and that apple? What did they mix with it? It was another plant? Was it an animal?
It's double-stranded RNA. They had a gene that they wanted to silence, and they knew the code or the sequence on that gene, and they created a complementary sequence on an RNA that's created by their inserted gene that flips around like a hairpin and becomes double-stranded RNA. It finds that sequence and it silences it. Unfortunately, that same sequence or similar sequences are found up and down the DNA. So it could silence many, many different genes. It's also true that if you feed double-stranded RNA to mice or to honeybees, they've done studies, it'll change their gene expression. So if we eat the double-stranded RNA, it might hook up with our genes, find the corresponding sequence, and silence genes that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the arguments around GMOs is like, well, we've been breeding plants, right, for a long time, right? We crossbreed and we do this and we do that. And so I just want to, before we wrap up, because there's going to be people out there, that's the argument, like, well, we've been, modifying for a long time. Will you speak on that for just 30 seconds? I know your
Sure.
voice is going here.
No, that's
so
okay. I'll squeak through this one.
All right.
The FDA scientists said GMOs are different and lead to different risks compared to natural breeding. George Wald, the Nobel laureate, said the same thing. Belinda Martineau, who did the first GMO tomato, it's no longer on the market. She says, of course, it's not an extension of natural breeding. It's different. It leads to different risks. It creates massive collateral damage that's not seen in nature. Those mutations can be dangerous. A single point mutation can kill someone. And there can be hundreds or thousands of them when you do these transformations through genetic engineering. So it's not the same thing. And speaking of myths, it doesn't even increase average yield. They say it's going to save the world, to feed the world. I've interviewed the experts on feeding the world. They got together and created a report for the UN called the ISTAD report, over 400 scientists, the most comprehensive evaluation how to feed the world. What do they say about GMOs? Doesn't apply. It's not a solution. It does not have any positive impact to feed the hungry world, eradicate poverty, or create sustainable agriculture. And, the New York Times did their report saying it didn't increase yield. It doesn't increase average yield, and yet agroecology and things like Beyond Organic can double yields in developing countries. And they've done studies with 12 million farms. And even increasing yields by itself is not the silver bullet solution to feed the world, because there's more food per person than any time in human history. Right now, we have enough food to feed 11 billion at least, according to the experts, but not everyone has access to it. So it's access, it's politics, it's money, and that means 1 billion people go to bed malnourished or undernourished. So it's not to feed the world. It doesn't reduce the use of chemicals. It's not well tested. It's not an extension of natural breeding. And a lot of this comes out in the film Secret Ingredients. We spend most of the time looking at these families and what can go wrong, but there's a section in the middle where I deal with these one at a time, and you can see the facts come up on the screen as I describe them.
Well, and at this point, I'm sure we don't even know all of the things that can come about because of the, mutating this and modifying these genes and things. We don't even know. It's not been tested.
We're finding out because we're the test subjects.
We are.
Right.
But even still, some of these things, we just have no idea how it could impact our health. We have no idea. We've only scratched the surface.
So simple takeaways here is eat organic, right? And non-GMO, project verified for yourself, for your family. And The other big takeaway is we have to educate others. And the best way to educate others is to show them Jeffrey's documentary. So Secret Ingredients with an S, movie.com. You can also go to empoweringyouorganically.com. We'll have all the links to that in our show notes. Jeffrey, you've mentioned some other websites while we've been doing this interview. Will you just kind of rattle off a few others that they may want to check
Sure.
out?
And I recommend doing it later after you've seen the film, because then you're gonna have the motivation.
Yes.
I think we covered a lot in this interview. I don't think it's as powerful at all compared to seeing the lives transform in front of you in this documentary. And people cry and people get excited and they laugh. It's a very moving documentary, because I can watch audiences and I can tell you that from my own, and every day in the editing booth I cry when I see certain things. So here are some URLs. secretingredientsmovie.com. Then there's responsibletechnology.org. That's for the Institute for Responsible Technology, which is co-producing this free showing event. There's petsandgmos.com. If you're a pet owner, watch our 2-minute film. If you got more time, watch the 10-minute version. It's going to be important because it's amazing what you can do to change your pet's lifespan as well as your pet's health. There's rounduprisks.com if you want to get rid of the spraying of Roundup in your area. But I think everything really starts with the film, because that puts it in perspective like nothing else. And as part of our 90-day program, when we're not only changing people's diets, making it easy and less expensive, we're also introducing opportunities for activism, for education. So there's a pets module, there's a parents module. If you have a pet or a child, then you can get some additional information to help there. There's, if you want to stop the spray, we introduce it there. In time, not all at once. That's the whole thing. There are some people who get to the cupboard stage, like bang, they see everything. Their life has to change that moment because that's the way they are. For others, it's a bit overwhelming. So we have a 90-day program that people can just go to the next week too, and they can speed up so they can do it faster. But we're trying to make it as easy as possible for everyone.
Excellent. So secretingredientsmovie.com. I'm going to keep saying the URL because I support you 110%. Really believe in what you've done. I'm honored that you came on our show with us. We'll be emailing our list of a couple 100,000 people several times to go watch the movie. I'm introducing you to others and making connections with other people that have email lists so that we can get the word out. I mean, I just couldn't be a bigger supporter of yours, what you stand for, the movement, what you're doing for humanity. And so thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you, John.
Okay, everybody that's listening, empoweringyouorganically.com. You can get all the show notes, all the resources, secretingredientsmovie.com. Also, subscribe on iTunes. What did you think about these 2 episodes with Jeffrey Smith? Did you like it? Give us a thumbs up on iTunes. Give us a good rating, a good review. We would love for you to share the love. And again, secretingredientsmovie.com. Share it with your friends and family. Take a second and just email them that link and just say, hey, go watch this. Send it out to everybody in your address book. Put it on Facebook. Put it on Instagram. You can't, I'm not going to say you can't, but it's very hard to listen to these podcasts and then not do something about it. So if all you can do is send an email out, do a Facebook post, an Instagram post, do that. Help spread the word so we can make a difference here. We can get rid of this poison, get rid of this garbage that's in our food supply right now, and help people get healthier. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Terry Ann.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Safe eating.